Diane, I'm listening to a podcast, Black Lodge Trivia Night. I've never heard so many game aspirations in my life. So the reason I wanted to set this up, because I wanted to start streaming board games again, and none of it's fucking working. So, anyway, yeah, if you guys want to give it a shot, I appreciate it. But
sure.
If not, I'll leave it up to you.
Shall we?
We shall.
All right.
Welcome to Black Lodge Trivia.
Welcome to Black Lodge Trivia Night.
It's like a round. Welcome to Black Lodge Trivia Night.
Welcome to Black Lodge Trivia.
Hello and welcome to Black Lodge Trivia Night. All right, hey, we're back and we're podcasting tonight. We're not playing a game tonight, and we're not going to talk about the things that we're most horned up for because that's what we always talk about. So, with me, Patrick, Art. Hello, fellas.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
It's going much better. We had some technical difficulties. From
it'll be unsaid who had the problems, but it's hard to say. Could have been anybody.
Could have been any one.
But
of
that
us.
guy definitely has two thumbs.
Usually it's Patrick.
What? I only have one thumb.
Too soon. And there's no thumb tragedy in any of our backstories. That's not even that good a joke. But hey, we're here to chat tonight, and before we chat, we need to do some trivia because, believe it or not, we are an actual play and RPG discussion podcast, but we're also fans of Twin Peaks.
That's right.
Some of us are fans of Twin Peaks, and we're going to hold on to that until we die. I have trivia tonight, but we don't have to use it
nice.
if we don't want to.
I think
go ahead.
We should definitely put Art on the spot for trivia tonight.
You know he has it prepared.
Oh, you want to come at me, bro?
I know you have it.
I do, but
he's furiously scribbling it on a napkin. So go ahead.
Yeah, let's do Matt's.
Okay. It's not Twin Peaks directly related. It's something about a star of Twin Peaks and some stuff that. Okay. What, and this is like there's like 4 questions here, right? What Twin Peaks star hosted Saturday Night Live in September of 1990?
I'm gonna September of 1990. Sherilyn Fenn.
No, Kyle MacLachlan.
Of course, the obvious answer. I was not going to go there, but it was the obvious answer.
In his opening monologue, who did he spoil as the killer of Laura Palmer?
I mean, did he actually spoil it?
Well, no.
He didn't spoil the real one.
Right. But then he had an angry phone conversation with David Lynch.
Dr. Jacoby. Let's go with that.
Log Lady.
Shelley the waitress.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Who debuted on SNL on that episode and starred in the Twin Peaks sketch? Or not starred, but appeared in the Twin Peaks sketch. Actually, two people you wouldn't expect appeared in the Twin Peaks sketch, believe it or not.
Kevin Nealon.
I think Kevin Nealon was in it.
Okay.
Chris Farley debuted that episode. That was his first episode of SNL. And he was in the Twin Peaks sketch. And the cop that had Chris Farley arrested was Conan O'Brien.
Oh, I forgot he was actually
and the whole
cast.
Premise of the plot. Well, no, he was a writer. They just had him stand in to be Andy. The whole premise of the Twin Peaks sketch is that Cooper overcomplicates things, and like he has letters from the killer saying, like, "I'm following up in regards to my letter, me killing Laura Palmer. Please respond." So, who's the killer in the sketch?
Phil Hartman.
No. Like which Twin Peaks character?
Oh! You said it was Shelley the waitress.
Phil Hartman does show up. Yeah. No. So in the monologue, he says it's Shelley the waitress.
Oh, okay.
In the sketch, it's Leo.
Oh.
And Leo like comes in and confesses, and then it's Chris Farley, and he like pulls out a wallet of photos, and he's like, "Here's me killing Laura Palmer. Here's me wrapping her in plastic." It's like it's a not that good a sketch, but it's pretty funny to like look back on, and it is like one of Chris Farley's first things on SNL.
Interesting. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Huh.
I have another little follow-up one that I found out just recently.
Oh,
okay,
nice.
remember Ben Horn was in West Side Story.
Mm-hmm.
What movie, and there were several of them, did Jerry Horn star in 1979 and deliver like a huge line? He played a villain.
The Warriors.
Yes.
He does the come
He's
out to play.
Warrior. Yep.
Yeah.
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 Did we have that one?
No, but I know that's Jerry Horn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I didn't realize that. But like as soon as you see it, it's obviously him. And I love the Warriors. Warriors is one of my all-time favorite things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very nice. Oh, that's very cool. That was a that was a lot of trivia. That was very nice.
Yeah, I thought the 4-part, like the SNL one was kind of weak, but if you lump them all together, none of it is like worth tracking down to watch. Like Kyle MacLachlan's monologue is not that funny, and like the whole like David Lynch yelling at him, fine. And the sketch itself is just kind of weird. It's like 9 minutes long.
So I'll say this. A lot of people are big. I don't know if it's definitely, obviously people my age have a real soft spot for that cast. I never had that. I mean, I know Phil Hartman had some moments. I was never a Chris Farley guy, Kevin Nealon, even the guy who, Norm MacDonald, that people love him. He just never quite did it for me.
Interesting.
The guy who actually I thought was the funniest outside of SNL was Dennis Miller. I used to like some of his stand-up concerts, but I didn't love him on Saturday Night Live.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, I loved Norm MacDonald and just about everything. I thought his Weekend Updates is like amazing. I get it. Most of that stuff too, like Farley's fine and like his highlights, but most of the stuff, like the reason I like Chris Farley is because of, like Black Sheep and like his movies. I grew up watching those movies as my go-to comedies, and same thing with like Adam Sandler. Although I will say Sandler was great on SNL, but
I wasn't allowed to watch SNL, so.
Oh, really?
Nope.
Too late or sinful?
Too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was on at 11?
It starts at 11:30 Eastern. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I guess I wasn't watching it. All that time period of that was just like reruns or like best of. I remember like going to Family Video and getting best of DVD sets for watching that shit before YouTube.
Wow, Blockbuster.
I watch SNL shit on like YouTube and like I'll catch all the highlights, and then my wife gets pissed because I don't like show her. So I'll be like, oh my gosh, did you see Ryan Gosling did a Papyrus 2 sketch? And she's like, no, I didn't, because you watched it without me and you haven't sent it to me yet. And it's like, it happens all the time. I'm just like, well, I just like see them.
I will say I was impressed with the Beavis and Butthead one that Ryan Gosling.
Right.
And apparently that one's been kicking around for, I know we're going off topic. I will say that correct. It's such like a simple, dumb idea that's executed really well. Comedy. Something that we, as I can't get any of my shit to work, I do not execute well. So,
I mean, it's just timing, which, you're also terrible at.
Timing.
It's timing. Damn it. I have trivia tonight, but we don't have to use it
nice.
if we don't want to.
I think
go ahead.
We should definitely put Art on the spot for trivia tonight.
He has it prepared.
Oh, you want to come at me, bro?
I know you have it.
Like she has an affair with the wife.
Yeah. But it's always the same wife with Tostinos, and then like there's one where go. Oh, fuck! They're like robot husbands, and then there's like the Tostino's wife, like your wife's watching football in the kitchen, like stay at home. It's like a do-it-yourself kid. Anyways, it's timing.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Highly recommend it. Is an all-time classic.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Sorry for the SNL detour.
No.
Who knew?
But we do have a topic. Believe it or not, we have a topic.
We do have a topic.
Oh my God,
not
we have
SNL,
a topic.
Believe it or not.
No. And the topic is, it's fine. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, Matt, you sort of threw around the topic a little earlier. Do you want to introduce?
Oh, we're doing that topic. We're doing that topic.
Oh, was there a different topic?
Yeah, no, I'll pitch it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we just rolled up characters for Art's spy game.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed the capability of making characters on Eat the Reich and Alchemy, and whether it would actually let us do that or not.
Yeah.
And so I thought there's going to be like a little bit of a conversation. I wanted to word this as not as a yes or no, but just how we make characters and what kind of mindset you get into when you're. It's a little bit different. Like my character thought process for something like Eat the Reich will
Mhm.
maybe be different than something for like the spy game or something like Pathfinder.
Mhm.
And so do either of you, or do either of you want to go first, have like a set method how like you want to make a character? Is there something you do first? Like do you envision them first? Do you let the stats roll out? Like what do you do when you're making a new, and let's just say it's not a one shot, you're just
Mhm.
like a true one shot. There's something like more long term.
Yeah, Patrick, do you want to go, or Matt?
No,
Do you
you
have something in mind?
go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead. Aaron.
So what I sort of do, what I'll do is I'll draw a little bit from my first Pathfinder Second Edition character creation, because the second time after my first guy died, I sort of went a little more like, okay, I need to slightly min max. I need to get the right kind of character. The first time though, I was like, let me just go through it, and I just spend a lot of time looking through the classes, so to speak. And then what I do from there is I try and think of, this is going to be very basic, but I try and think of something my character could want.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at the classes and I'm like, okay, this character would want something, if something clicks, and once that click happens, and giving your character something it wants is the most like standard writing
I was
kind
gonna
of
say that's like writing 101. It's like what do your characters want and what gets in their way?
Right. What gets in their way? Some people say how they get around the stuff is who they are. There's different takes on it, but it's just like your character has to want something. And so I just look for inspiration, usually from the classes. Actually, step 1, fuck the magic casters. They're gone. Step 2,
Human
can I work
warrior.
with a fighter? Exactly. No. But I do. And so for that first Pathfinder character, I forget what the class was, but something really jumped out at me about that class that made me think, oh, I think this character would want this. And that's sort of the approach that I take behind the scenes. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I've never thought about character creation that way. I think that's because I'm familiar with the concept just from like writing with what your character wants, but I've never sat down and be like, what would my character want?
Mhm.
That's interesting. I like that. I think the next
Yeah, I
time I
do
roll up a
too.
character, I'm going to try to frame that as before I pick class, before I do anything, or maybe I'll see what class speaks to me. Okay, if I'm going to
Right.
be a thief, what do they want in this? What about you, Patrick?
So it's interesting because I think Art's thinking of it from a very in world way, right? And I'm thinking of it especially for a long term kind of game, or even just a like what we do 6 or 8 sessions, right? It's what do I as a player want to do? Like what do
Yeah.
I what sounds interesting to me this go round, right? Like do I want to be sneaky and be a thief? Do I want to be the face of the party? Do I want to do like what? And of course, if there's any gaps, which is very easy to cover because there's 2 of us usually, so one of us can do one thing and one of us like there's always room to do whatever. But for like the Pathfinder Second Edition second go round, I wanted to get up and punch stuff in the face because the first character did not do that, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna break what I usually do. I want to go punch things. Ended up as a monk. I'm like, okay, cool. That's a little bit different than what I usually do, and yeah. So that's if, especially again, if it's going to be a longer, drawn out thing, I'm going to be with this character for a while. So I want to make sure that it's something that I'm going to enjoy, like controlling and playing as for that length of time. Right? I don't want to be stuck. I have been in games where I picked, a healer character, and it's like, okay, well, all I'm good at is like negotiation and healing, and
Right.
I'm going to be stuck doing this for 6 months, like, so that's what. And then after that, then I'll of course read through the classes and everything and go from there. But it's what sounds interesting and entertaining for as a player, selfishly, because I'm a dick.
I'm not too far off from you, Patrick.
Mhm.
It is, for me, it's mechanically driven. What am I gonna enjoy mechanically in the long
Mhm.
term? And then I usually staple something on top of that, which we'll go around
Mhm.
and talk about. But I'll use my like ongoing Curse of Strahd game. I picked a sorcerer instead of like a wizard or a druid or something like that to be strictly a one, adjust my spells so it stays interesting.
Mhm.
And then two, play a support role, but not be a healer, meaning I can buff the shit out of people. I can turn them into giant blue apes.
Mhm.
I can do this stuff to manipulate the party. And that mechanically was different than anything I had played up to that point. When I think the Kineticist, I've mentioned this, is one of the best class designs.
Mhm.
There's paths you can go down that are broken. Like mechanically, it maybe not balanced, but just as a whole, because it offers the feeling of you can feel like a tank, you can feel like a caster, you can feel like support, you can feel like a healer. And so mechanically, in terms of enjoyment, that seems like the most interesting thing to me. So usually it's that. It's all right, what do I want to get out of this session mechanically? And then what I'll typically do, and I'll full on admit this, is then tack on a character concept that I know or like or want to experience. So
Mhm.
I'll use Art Spy Game here. I just reread Velvet before the game started. And then I wanted to play the character Velvet, which again, she's not just Black Widow. She's not just Scarlett Johansson. She's this unassuming, super kick-ass Black Widow.
Mhm.
Like, she's sitting there at the front desk, and I really like that character concept. So I will latch on to characters that I get from like mass media. So like, once you guys have picked out the type of character and like, Art, you say you develop your want, do you take it another step with how you build like the character, the type of character you're going to play, I guess, more beyond mechanically?
So yeah, once I know what my character wants, then I start to sort of create the backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sort of, and I did this less with my first character in Pathfinder, but I did it more on at one point, I don't know if we talked about it here on Black Lodge, Matt and I were going to do sort of like a side project with Pathfinder, when we were trying to fill the space with one-on-one games.
Mhm.
And I was looking a lot at the Inquisitor, is that the right class?
No.
No, it's not the right name, but it was like an Inquisitor, but I forget what the name of the class is. The Oath, the Crimson Oath.
Champion?
Yeah.
No.
You're thinking of the Knights of Lastwall is like
Yes,
what
that's
we
what I
had
was
talked
thinking
about
of.
playing,
Yes,
but that was
yes,
more
I'm
like
sorry.
a group. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So it was the Knights of Lastwall. And so again, even then it wasn't so much the class, it was sort of the sort of origin story.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, okay, if my character wants this kind of thing, then this group has the origin story that I find interesting. And then I usually think of mechanics last, because usually I'm just like, I want my character to be A, not a magic user,
Mhm.
and B, viable. Like I want it to be able to kill something, because I know, if I'm being honest with myself, like Pathfinder is not going to be the talky political intrigue game. I'm sure it could be, but I don't think that's where ours were headed. And
Mhm.
so what I want to say really quickly though is a lot of this, I think, actually is why, we've talked a lot about Call of Cthulhu, but the way I
Mhm.
approach how I make characters is why in Call of Cthulhu, I both immediately thought like, what the fuck are most characters doing?
Mhm.
But also I don't usually have an issue with finding a reason to run into danger, because part of like, what does my character want? I know, like in Cthulhu, my character needs to want to do something stupid.
Mhm.
And so that's why, like in Scritch Scratch, I made him like an impulsive kid that was trying to impress the girl,
Mhm.
and and when I did something in a Alcoholic Adventure Cabal, I made it so that my guy had other inadequacies that he was going to have to try and overcome for pride. So I
Sure.
tried, I knew the game has a shortcoming. And so I knew, because I focused this sort of what does my guy want path, I sort of tailored it to the game that we're playing, if that makes sense.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't make sense because I ramble.
I think no, I'm really liking this want idea, because then I'm just thinking like in terms of Like, we have made Jago and my character, whose name I've forgotten,
Veronica,
thank you. I was thinking Helen for some reason.
Log Lady.
Yeah, like giving her a 1. Like I said, she's based loosely off Velvet, but like that's just me playing a trope, right? Which is totally fine and acceptable. But now, like, I'm just thinking of like another layer of depth and another like drive and why she acts the way she acts. By giving her a 1, that's like something I come up with. I really like that.
Well, and to some games credits, like one thing that I really like about Free League games is that most of their games have some kind of like, what's your dark secret, right? Like, I don't know how that's implemented in Alien, but I know Forbidden Lands, I think Vaesen. And I think, I don't know if this is their intention, but for me, that's what I use it to help facilitate is what does my character want? And then, like there's, who's the Quinn guy that reviews RPGs and board games? Quinn, he used to be Shut Up and Sit Down.
Yeah, Quinn's from Shut Up and Sit Down, and is the RPG, yeah.
And one of the things I thought he said that was interesting, he was talking about NPCs, but he's like, when you make an NPC, your NPCs should basically have the subtlety of a WWF character. But I actually think that could apply to your player character as well, just to, because we're not trying to do like Daniel Day-Lewis method, Lincoln kind of things, right? Which just, we're trying to have fun, and we're trying not to have to like really, really work for it. At least for me. And so just having that one thing that you want, or just, take the take the dark secret and, run with it.
What's interesting when, I was figuring we were going to come around the horn with this, as a, what's the second thing that you do is, it's interesting that you say that we're not all method actors. When I'm making a character, the second thing, so I'll figure out what I want to do mechanically. And then
the accent.
Well, close, but it's what's their 1 or 2 personality traits that I'm just going to absolutely blow up out of proportion and just make, because that's eventually, as we continue to play, they'll flesh out into a person, right?
Right.
But starting out, you have to have that 1 or 2 things that makes them tick. So Jago is, he's Jago. Like, we know what Jago does at this point. He's a cool cat. He's on the, and I'll also picture a scene with my characters too. So I'll pick a character trait that I'm gonna blow out of proportion, right? And then I'll picture them in just a scene. And the one that kept coming back for Jago was him, kind of like Gary Oldman from Slow Horses. Like, he's sitting at a smoky bar and he's talking to some pimp. Like, I don't know why that kept coming to my head, but that's like, this is the untouchable person that some other that's too low for other MI5 agents to talk to, and I'm going to be the guy that's out there, slumming it with these folks as my contacts, right? So picturing a scene and then picturing one of those personality traits to just blow up, which ends up with me playing basically Gary Oldman from Slow Horses, but
No, I like that idea of putting them in a scene right away, because I think none of my characters come to fruition until you start playing them. Like, I may have this idea like, I'm going to play Velvet, and then it turns into Mrs. Featherbottom from Arrested Development, as we tend to, pull from. But I also I don't normally do that, but I think I should. So like, these are all things that just make, so like the one, not only is like wonderful for character creation, it also like helps you act. Like, not I'm an actor, like, oh, it's your turn, what are you gonna do? Okay, at the worst you can do is act how your character wants to act. Like, and then, but if you then, to Patrick's point, if you put them in a scene immediately, I think it just like ramps you up and then helps you envision that character, because Art, you gave us like a hook, and so immediately I had this picture of what Veronica would be doing, which is in bed with someone that she's working a job on, whether or not, and somehow they're still able to track her down. And that's like, I don't normally do that, but that's a great thing to start doing. And you don't like have to do it. These are just things like, the more involved I am with my character, the more I'm going to enjoy the game. It's just the fact of it. That's just how I operate. If my character is just some boilerplate nobody, then I don't care.
Right. Yeah. And I'll say that, so for those that don't know, the way our Cold War espionage game started was I told Matt and Patrick, hey, when we start the first session, here's what's going to happen. It's going to start with a phone call at 3 a.m. And I want you to tell me where you are when you get that call. And I didn't put any parameters around it. It didn't have to be something exotic. It's just, I wanted you guys to picture your characters doing something. And, and that's why I even said, side conversation, like it could be simple. It could be like, I'm trying not to have my wife wake up, or it didn't have to be exotic. It just had to place your character in the world, and get you used to picturing it. And so
that's amazing. It's
Patrick,
such a simple concept.
Yep. It's a great plan.
And what did we do with Vason? Because I don't think I set you up with a question beforehand, but we deliberately didn't start the starting adventure at the beginling. We took
played out
back.
The introduction to the society, not just like your character getting the keys, but role played meeting the characters and like meeting the lady who gives you the key, and made that the focus of the entire first session, which is, you're right. Vason has the same thing. Alien is like a vice. Like, what's your vice? If I remember right, kind of,
which is nice.
Not too different. And Vason, for those who don't know, is like, it's kind of twofold. One, what caused you to get the sight, and the other one is like, my author will, without hesitation, write and share the darkest secrets of his friends if it means he's going to like further enhance his books.
Right.
And then like getting a new book and telling that story is what pushes him forward.
Right. And I think the very first thing we talked about is I asked you, like, tell me the moment you got your sight. And I don't know if I gave that to you beforehand or if we just took it on the day. I think
you did give it to me beforehand.
Right. Because I try usually to give somebody something to think about beforehand, because it's usually the first thing I'm going to ask you. And it wasn't that I cared what your sight manifested itself as. I just wanted to know the event that occurred. And then you came up with one. You had like this fire that, claimed, I think, some of your family, but you managed to escape. And again, it's just sort of giving you a chance to picture your character doing something in the world.
Yeah, it brings them to life. I love that.
Yeah. Which I don't think I can take any credit for it. But what I'll say this, like my training is, I went to film school. And so Matt, when you were saying like, this is writing 101, that's the stuff. This is what I learned, right? Like I learned writing, as a big part of my education. Not that I'm very good at it, but the lessons are simple enough where it's like, yeah, hey, 101 is this. It's not that hard. Whether you execute it or not well is different.
Right.
What it is what it is.
Good. Any other like core steps you do, like anytime you make a character, or
what if we flip that on its head? And maybe I'm jumping the shark here. So what do you guys do? And I'm only saying this because, one, I played in an Alien game with the pre-gen characters, and two, we have Eat the Reich, which is, it leans very heavily towards the pre-gen characters. Obviously, we've said this offline and everything. I'm fine with you guys making a character for that, and it's gonna be great either way. But what do you do if you do sit down and are plopped in front of a table? And it's, okay, here's 6 characters, pick one. And how do you make that one of your own characters? How do you give that character personality?
I think a lot of that comes down to the GM. Because I remember the first in-person RPG game I had a pre-gen for Tales from the Loop. And I played like a 12-year-old softball player in 1980s. And the GM just did a great job of bringing that pre-gen character to life, because he'd been GMing for 40 years and knew how to do that. And like, that was really enjoyable. But also as the player, you have to like invest in, and if that's the card you've been dealt, I don't know. I struggle with pre-gen sometimes, because if I don't buy in, then it's, I don't know. I don't have a good answer.
Okay. Art, how do you make them yours?
It's actually the exact same process I was describing for the other thing. Instead of like looking at the class, I'm just looking at something on the character sheet. And if something jumps out at me that says this person would want something, even if, it doesn't have to like be like angels from heaven and shaft of light, but something has to like click where it's like, I think this character wants X, or
I
I
want a
think
chili cheese dog.
I want that goddamn chili cheese dog. And
I want.
and that's sort of the, like that's sort of the beauty. Like, like in Pulp Fiction, people want the briefcase. We don't know what the briefcase is. Like, that's the thing, right? Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to see, like, God damn it, they want something. And if you can lock in on that, I almost find pre-gens easier in that sense. Cause I'm like, I don't have to worry about, like, does she have a scar or is her hair purple?
Sure.
I just, the one thing I focus on in order to role play a character is what do they want? And I got that. The rest, what, in this case, I could take or leave as long as they're not a magic user.
It's kind of interesting because I'm thinking like with Modern Call of Cthulhu, I don't remember the name of my character, but she had a want for the first half. And when that want went away, her want was the success of the show.
Right.
When the adventure pivoted beyond that want, when it was no longer about the show, I should have pivoted to a new want. And even if I did pivot to a new one, it was get the hell out of here. And I should have made that one. I'm just like retroactively, it's really easy to look back on these things and like, what would you do different? I'm just like trying to think, if I changed that one, I wonder if then that makes her a character I connect with more and have more interest in staying in that town, because when I made the one get the hell out of here, then your only action is to kind of just run away.
Right. It's very realistic.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not a wrong one by any means. It's just for role playing, it's not a very interesting one because you're just going to run away.
Right. And that's the Call of Cthulhu conundrum is that almost every character's want should be to run away.
Right.
So you have to figure out, and in my case, I'm a horny teenager, but I was just trying to think, like, was there something about wanting the show to succeed at all costs that could that have stayed the want even as things started to get weirder and weirder?
Well, I think
maybe if I envision it that way, like, oh, we can turn this into, like, no one's ever seen footage like this before, that character acts that's a complete 180. That character's acting way different. They're like, oh, we got to get this at all costs and figure out this mystery because when we sell this footage, we're going to be millionaires. No one cares about cleaning. Yeah, that's interesting. I need to think about this. This is going to
I don't know.
Probably change nothing, but man, does it feel good right now.
So I think what we need to do is we need to all repurchase Call of Cthulhu and try it with this new approach.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I still
Patrick,
have mine.
do you do anything with the pre-gen specifically?
Not really. Like, again, so that is when I'll beg, borrow, and steal. So I'll look at, the one that comes to mind for me is our buddy Hollywood's Alien game over in Alcoholic Adventures. Sadly, footage was lost to time forever. One of my favorite characters I played the corporate douchebag in the Chariot of the Gods pre-gen scenario, and he was basically Foghorn Leghorn, the corporate scumbag, and it was incredible. But
I've been in a few games with a Foghorn Leghorn character, and I think there is nothing better.
No.
Like,
Perfect.
I've played Foghorn Leghorn. Hollywood's played Foghorn Leghorn. If someone's just going to play that character, you're in for a good time and buckle the fuck up.
Yeah, every time. Yeah. Jimmy Bond. So
damn it, why didn't I make Foghorn Leghorn for Art's British spy drama?
You could have been, like the...
Oh, we tried. We were doing the James Bond in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Right.
Yeah. Damn it.
Next time.
And then your asshole GM wouldn't let that, wouldn't yes and. Man.
Well, I think that's just a good point for, like, the beg, borrow, and steal thing is just so good for
everything.
Scenario design, character design, just all of that stuff, because you're just playing a game.
Yeah.
And it's just your friends, and until you tell them, my first alien scenario was fucking Bug's Life, okay? Like, they did Bug's Life. They showed up, they were not mercenaries, and they got roped into, like, saving these people, and someone got in a fucking loader and ripped a bad guy in half. Like, it was amazing. And
just
I was
like Bug's Life.
Just like Bug's Life.
But, so, okay. To that effect, do you find that whatever your approach is to making characters, are there certain games that facilitate it and certain games that work against you?
I think the games that ask the right questions help. If we're just talking about character development,
Mhm.
Kids on Bike, I use those questions all the time, and just flushing out your character. What does your character know about X? How did how did your character help out Patrick?
Mhm.
Patrick, what's a secret you know about Art's character? That's Kids on Bike stuff. That is one of the like best, just flushing out your character and more fleshing out your character bonds is really what that is good at. Um, I think some rules light stuff, they're not actively getting in your way, but they don't have those things, and so
Right.
then I want to borrow. There's a Reddit thread from a long time ago about knives in your character. Like the more knives you develop for your character are the more things your GM can twist. So any game that helps develop those knives. My sister has a drug addiction. My dad left when I was a child.
Mhm.
I'm addicted to I don't know, whatever.
Tiger piss.
Yeah, tiger piss, and I need it at all costs. Like that's one other tool for the GM, but it's also like you're helping your GM out and you're developing your character.
Mhm.
Your character is addicted to tiger piss. What is how does that make him act? Anyways, that's so games that facilitate that are like a winners in my book. I don't know if anything's actively gone against like opposing that, but that's my take. What about you, Patrick?
Yeah, I can't think of anything that's gotten in the way. I mean, there are games that don't help themselves, and I think it does fall into the more rules light stuff where it's like, okay, like Mork Bork, roll a character. Okay, there's my character. Even into the odd art, it's not like it's going to be a complicated character or anything, but it's okay. Roll 3d6 three times. That's your character. Here's your equipment. Godspeed. Like, that's kind of hard to come up with a character concept, which is why I went and pulled in those Electric Bastion Land, the failed careers to be like, okay, let's get some more like flavor into this. So
Yeah. We need a bouillon cube to get this stew going. We need
exactly,
something to kickstart the
couple of bay leaves just to get it going.
exactly. Yeah.
So
That's interesting because I was about to say like, okay, I want to just say on the record, and it's been recorded many times over, I clearly love CBR PNK Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
But I do remember looking it over thinking like I really appreciated the rules light approach, that sort of PBTA, whatever, or was it Blades in the Dark?
Forge in the Dark.
Yeah, Forge in the Dark. But at the same time, I was sitting there thinking like, and I think we talked about that. You sort of tend to do the same thing. Like when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you keep trying to figure out ways to use your strength stat or to, and so
that's true.
And so to me, that isn't sort of figuring out what you want. It's you've got these limitations of the system. And in my mind, that was keeping me from figuring out this want. And it needed a little bit more for me to hang some things on. So I wasn't just like trying to, and the same thing happened when we played The Long Dark Space Between the Stars. I kept trying to shape everything into a certain type of problem.
Right.
Instead of trying to figure out what I wanted, I was trying to, because I only have the one stat or whatever to work with. So, I mean,
and failure in that game is so bad. Like failure in those, both of those games, especially Long Dark Space Between the Stars. Like if you fail, it makes for an interesting story, but you're gonna lose the game in a game like Long Dark Space Between the Stars. And failing should make interesting role play scenarios. So I'm all for failing, but you're exactly right. Instead of coming up with, oh, my character is going to do this, my character is going to do this because he needs to do this because it's the only stat he has because this game is rules light.
And I say that
like, I understand playing to your strengths, but there's that like you're shoehorned in.
Right. Like you really can't get out of your lane because otherwise it's just not going to work. And I say that as somebody who's a huge fan of Cyberpunk and The Long Dark Space Between the Stars. I really had a great time playing both. But in terms of like my process, it didn't quite apply as much because I spent more time not figuring about what does my character want. The situation was how can my character narrate the events so that my one, and so I feel like I might have the same experience with PBTAs with certain moves, but I've never played a classic PBTA. The Spy game was almost one, but I don't know if I've ever truly played like a classic full bore PBTA game.
Monster of the Week is a PBTA game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought
Okay.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Which you recently played.
I did
Yeah.
over at AAC, and it's interesting. I really like that system. There'll be more thoughts on that. I think I'll run that at some point for you guys because
I would love that.
I had a ton of fun with it. I don't know if
Yeah,
you guys had
good
a
stuff.
chance. Yeah, we'll plug that, but that was a ton of fun.
Yeah, I listened. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, I haven't listened yet. I meant the rule book. Like
Mhm.
Monster of the Week books are phenomenal.
They're so good.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I've never read the rule book, but I did listen to
That's good.
your session.
I'm sorry, just in advance for that. But the book's excellent. So, yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, am I on crack for that, the way the rules light maybe?
No, and I think it's like mechanics, right? Like even if like we're playing to our strengths in the spy game, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess like there's still some uncertainty with like a D100 and a base skill line. Like you have that base skill line. When you crunch everything down to whatever Cyberpunk was, like a D6, your margin for error seems so small. And again, with Long Dark Space Between the Stars, failure means early death.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
you're playing for your death in that game, so don't get me wrong. But like
Right.
on a D6, it's like, well, I'm going to do the thing that I can do best because I need to with how mechanically this game works. Where like a spy game, if you're like, Matt, roll your pickpocket, and I didn't take points in that, I at least have some kind of baseline stat that you're going to let me roll to do that. And it doesn't. And that's true of like D&D and
Mhm.
Pathfinder. Pathfinder, I think a little bit too, you play to your strengths as well, but because you have so many strengths, like if you're going to roll a recall knowledge check, you're probably going to have one or two ways to tackle that recall knowledge check where you're not just always rolling like a dumbass and not getting anything or getting false information. There's probably one or two ways to either arcane or nature. Like you can, anyways. I mean, that's kind of true of all systems. It's just when you boil it down to more of an essence, then you're going to be more limited in what you can do when you only have a couple.
Yep.
When the rules only allow for you to do 3 things and you're suck at 2 of them, you're going to do the one best thing.
Right.
If the rule
right.
allows for 50 things and you're good at 10 of them, you have a lot more room, right? Even though it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like in theory, if you reduce it down to whatever, yeah, it's who cares what you're rolling, but at least narratively it gives you a little room to play.
But you're like specialized in Cyberpunk. But again, you have there's so many skills that you have a baseline in that I never felt like I was. And like Cyberpunk Red is what I'm talking
Sorry,
about.
that's I just realized. Yeah, I was. Yeah. Well, let me ask you guys a question then. We've sort of talked about this mostly from the perspective of what you guys do as players. We sort of talked a little bit about what I've done in a couple of games, what I did as a GM. Like I asked you guys, what are you doing at 3 a.m.? What are some things that you might do as a GM? Do you do things as a GM to help your players find that character? Or is it like, good luck, you're on your own? Or is it not really that important because it'll work itself out eventually anyway?
I think for me, it's kind of a lot of when am a GM. I think it rolls into that third one. It'll sort itself out. Like I want people to come in with some idea, like we've made characters or whatever, but even the games I have run, and it could be wrong. You guys have played in games that I've run. You start in one corner and you end up going a totally different direction, right? Like Call of Cthulhu is supposed to be super serious. We ended up being, fucking Mrs. Doubtfire for 4 episodes. Like, and it's you find yourself, right? Thanks Simba, but it's and every good plan, doesn't last. I forget the saying. What's the saying? Every
survive first contact.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Eisenhower. Yep. Yeah. So that's what it ends up being in my play, and everybody just ends up playing themselves. In my experience,
That's also true. I
Right.
could be better at that. I think like just reflecting on this, like how do you facilitate characters to find that character if they want to? Like not every player wants to. Some players just want to roll, show up, play dice, tell a fun story. They don't really care if their character comes out, whether it's a boiled red potato or a ham bone. That's a terrible analogy. I don't fucking know what I'm saying. But
no, let's explore that one.
Other than the character creation, I don't continue to facilitate that, and I recognize that. It would be cool to like. Again, I'm a big fan of the Kids on Bikes questions. I often will try to implement those in ways that I can to foster relationships, but even just that, all right, here's where we're going to be starting off. What is your character doing so they can see themselves in that first scene? And then if you're going to have the players come up with 10 knives for you to twist, well, you got to twist those knives.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, sometimes, and this came up in our Call of Cthulhu game, not ours, but the Kansas City campaign, like, there was a story I wanted to tell, at least for a little bit. Then when we got past that, I wanted to pull the characters' levers. And I should have been pulling those character levers earlier, just for the sake of the, like, it's fair to the players. And like, they've come up with these characters. They've given me this little juicy tidbit that their sister was murdered. Like, I should be incorporating those things and doing a better job. And that helps that character come to life and helps them be more invested, because you're not just a passenger on a train. You're on a passenger on the train because you have a tidbit leading to your sister's murder. And I just need to be better of that. But then it's like hard with when you're going to do Pathfinder out of the box, right?
Mm-hmm. I think
because sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
I was just going to say, I think we've run into that a lot because a lot of the adventures we have run have been out of the box typically.
Right.
So, or I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was going to say something very similar. It's just that, once you get going, you're not there for, what's my story? What's my character's arc? How do I change? And, and that's what I was about to say is like, once we do that, where are you at 3 a.m.? And then I'm just all about the story at that point, right? Like I'm not facilitating your character stuff anymore. I'm just like, this is what's happening. This is what's happening.
Well, I think you facilitate the characters by bringing their characters more into the story instead of just being, I mean, as much as we were enjoying Degenesis Rebirth, I never really brought your characters into the plot. Right. And I know we didn't get very far, and you were tasked, you represented these different clans, and you were tasked with solving this murder. For those people who aren't familiar with that scenario, that's the essence of it. I should have then pushed more to bring you. Now, Art's character, I would say, did get involved because he lived in the town and was like a guard for the town, but I didn't do anything, Patrick, to push your character more into the murder plot. And I think that's how you facilitate the character growth, and like, because that's like the sweet spot, right? Like, oh man, we played this year-long campaign and like my character started as this and then he fell in love. And like, I would say, Art, like, you shouldn't beat yourself up on that, because in all of your games you've ran for me, my character has found love in some sort. I guess maybe not. I don't think Helgane ever found love, but like in your M Space game, it's just basically my love story now. And I love that. And so like by interjecting the things that are important to my character into the story, that's then helping flesh out that character and developing that character.
I will say the M Space game got uniquely horny. It's
fit. About true love.
Yeah, like you were.
I'm not one night stand.
No, that was the other people. But anyway, so I forgot where I was going with that.
And then my fucking Curse of Strahd game is about romance too. So really, you know what I just need? I just need to play more romance-based RPGs.
I think we need to play Vampire the Masquerade is what that needs. That's what you want to play now, right?
Suck it. Can we get Foghorn Leghorn plus Vampire Bill?
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Which I think is just Vampire Bill. I don't know.
Wow.
I said, suck it.
Suck it. Sweet Jesus.
We need to play Vampire the Masquerade.
We do.
And the system is actually really fucking good. Like, I really like the rules in that rulebook.
I need to.
I mean, like 3d6 is fine, but just like some of the things they do, combat is 3 rounds, then you're in and out. Like, what a novel concept. Like, I want to really try. I know we've talked about that, but like, I want to see that in practice, because it's uncomfortable, but then it makes sense.
Right. And honestly, like a lot of games, this is a bit of a diversion, but like even Mithras has mechanics where like D&D, there's no mechanics really that I'm aware of off the top of my head to move combat along, right? To shortcut combat. Or
monsters can surrender, right?
Oh, that's
Which
true.
is something we all forget about, right? Like goblins will run away when it's 6-on-1. The last guy's not
right. That's true.
Thank me, Daddy.
That's why that's why as a GM I always roll my dice behind the screen, because I can say, "Ooh, that nat 20 that would have killed you. Nope, that's a dead goblin right there, guys. Great job." Combat over. Let's move on.
Okay, so this is another diversion. Matt, you ran. You rolled basically above the table for
I
Pathfinder,
always roll
which
above
is
the table.
fight.
I mean,
Almost always roll above the table, unless I think if I start rolling behind the screen,
This is
then
a
you guys
fire
are
rat.
fucked. You guys are
Rizzo the rat.
screwed.
Yeah. All
Man,
right.
we're just gonna move this back here.
And that's interesting because I pretty much always roll behind the screen. Just that's not for any reason. Like it's just I'm there.
Yeah.
Like I like to progress the story. Like I don't want stuff to drag out. It's not progress the story. I don't want like if it coin puzzle. We brute forced it, right? But if people were actually rolling shit for that and we weren't coming up with anything and our rolls were just terrible, which I mean basically was what happened. At some point you're just like, oh, yep, okay, you guys, you got it. Like you roll that was good enough. Like it's the relief, the pressure relief valve.
Right.
But
Above
I don't
the table.
want to. So I agree with you,
Sure.
but I do that by changing stats.
Okay, fair.
Like monster comes in with 500 HP, and you guys are getting your ass kicked. Monster all of a sudden has 3 HP. You know, like it's just like, oh my god, you guys just have to hit it once. Just do
Yeah.
anything.
Please God.
Yeah, but I won't change the dice because I would personally feel like I'm lessening the story.
Mhm.
Like if I lie on the dice, do I kill Farah? I don't know. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But the fact that she died,
Mhm.
and then in my Alien game, spoiler alert, when Hollywood, we all thought he was gonna die, and he made this amazing death speech as the elevator's coming down,
Yes.
and the rolls didn't provide for that. And like then in my head, it's like, well, if and I don't even know if I had to roll anything, but it's like if I'm rolling behind a screen.
Mhm.
Am I killing Hollywood's character for the death of it, or am I like letting it play out? And so then I'm like, I don't even want those temptations. I'll
Sure.
lie about other things.
Mhm.
There's only 3 goblins.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
I gotcha.
I just leave the dice out there.
That's fair. Art, what do you do?
I tend to roll in the open because I feel like there's nothing about the roll that is predetermined what failure has to be.
Sure.
It's also true. Yeah.
So I can run with it either way, whether like, you know, because that's the thing, right? Like, so I'm very much like, and I've said this before, sometimes I've encountered some podcasts where I've listened to people talk about game sessions and they're like, yeah. And then I worked it out with my GM, how my character was going to die in the next session. So I could have I'm like, and for me, that seemed completely foreign to what we're doing because this isn't writing a short story together. This is, you know, improv. It's jazz, baby. And, you know, and what that stems from is the dice, right? Like the dice sort of throw snags into all of our plans, and the fun of it is rolling with those punches. So it's so, you know, succeed, fail, you know, whatever. I don't want to know what's coming so that when it's revealed, then we have to jazz baby it, you know, to the next section of the story. So I will, I mean, I'll do like some, you know, narratively appropriate, like if it's like a spot hidden roll, you know, and I don't want you to know that I've checked or, you know, the classic examples. But if it's like, you know, somebody swings at you or, you know, I want to know if you're failing this bluff attempt that could have serious consequences. I want it all out there on the table.
Now, I do like it in Pathfinder on Recall Knowledge, where it is intentionally designed that it's behind the screen, it's a hidden roll, so you don't know if information is accurate or not. There, I like it, because that's just like a funny, are you going to act on bad information? That makes for an interesting story.
Right. That's also true. Right. If it makes a better...
Tamalee's the bad guy? Fucking hammer in time. Hey, guys, what's up?
Oh, she's got to fucking die.
It's time.
What'd you say to us?
So let me ask you a question.
Getting back, yeah, go
ahead. Getting back to character, all this kind of stuff. This isn't quite what we were talking about earlier, but what are some of your favorite systems to roll up characters in?
Pathfinder.
Yeah.
For both,
Pathfinder's
yeah.
character.
It's so
I mean, just
good.
the mechanics of it and the future planning are just so fucking good. And the tools and resources out there just make it like that's amazing. Cyberpunk I really enjoyed. Really enjoyed, and Cyberpunk Red is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And again, it's you have a million things you can pick in Cyberpunk Red, but you feel like that those character choices are going to matter. Like you have a million things in Call of Cthulhu, but like your museum knowledge check will be highly dependent on the scenario you're running.
Right. Interesting.
I'll flip it on his head for a second and say that yes, Pathfinder is great and has been. Art, the spy game, making the characters with plenty of with 1,000 options for both Pathfinder and everything too. The bevy of choices is a ton of fun, but it's also really fun to go on Scumberther for Morkborg and just click random 100 times until you're like, okay, yeah, I can work with that. Like
that one's weird.
And even if you don't use that, the underlying process of Morkborg is solid. Like I actually like making Morkborg characters too. I'm looking around to see if they're. What about you, Art?
So that's interesting. I'm going to sort of hedge a little bit. I'm going to say, I mean, when you take into account all the tools available, then yeah, like all of them are fun. I actually, if you're doing it sort of the classic pulling out the books and some scrap paper, I actually, this is going to sound terrible, but I actually don't love in that idea Pathfinder and D&D.
Sure.
Only because for me personally, I was that's what I did with my first character is I didn't use any tools and I tried to work it out. I made a ton of mistakes. Like it's so, for me,
very dependent on a bunch of different things.
Right. You have to, if you get this wrong, then the next 4 things are wrong. And it's sort of like answering a multiple choice question. You skipped one and all of a sudden all your bubbles are. So in my mind, but once you bring in like the online tools and stuff like that, it gets way better and that's not a problem. I'm actually a big fan of, I guess you'd call them like life path systems.
Yeah, Cyberpunk has a life path.
Cyberpunk has a life path. The classic example is Traveler. I don't know if it's in the current version of Twilight 2000, but one of the things I really loved about the original Twilight 2000 is you could sort of pick life paths, and I used to roll up Twilight 2000 characters all the time. I loved doing it. I loved picking my way through. And then if you're on this channel, one of the video games that I play a bunch of for a while is Darklands, an old PC game, and it has a beautiful, amazing life path system. So, because for me, while that's not necessarily telling me what my character wants, it's filling in a lot of those, my character in the world that we were talking about earlier, without me having played. And so then gives it a little bit of shape before I get into the pool, so to speak.
I don't know if it's just the game being solid, but I thought Dragonbane was fun. Like the blend of just either picking or rolling on a simple D6 to see what you come up with. Nothing like spectacular about it. I just enjoyed the characters I made for Dragonbane.
I did too. And we haven't talked about it yet officially, but I would also say, and Matt's sort of hinted at it. I really liked making characters for Savage Worlds.
Savage Worlds character creation is fun. It just always leaves me wanting more.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because it's, I feel like the beauty of Savage Worlds, if we, someday we should really talk about it, is that it's, I don't know how to say this. For what you're getting, it feels like it should be way more complicated.
Yeah.
And it really has this elegance to it where, like, you're assigning your dice and then you're picking perks and then do you want to choose a flaw so you can get one? It's a lot of things that GURPS has, but GURPS is just like a spreadsheet taking a shit on a PowerPoint and then punching you in the face with it. It's just like, there's just so much and it gets so overwhelming and such like into the weeds. Like for me personally, like, wait, I have 200 points and I just spent 5 points here, but I can move that 15 points. And then Savage Worlds accomplishes for me the same things in faster, smoother,
in 20 minutes.
Package.
Yeah.
Potentially. Yeah. But like Matt said, and well, you would, in my head, I want to say that leaves you wanting more is a good thing. But do you feel like the game actually would benefit from starting one more level up?
I don't know. Again, it largely came out I've talked about this a little bit Deus Vult, where I wanted like 3 abilities or 4 abilities, especially on the magic user side.
Right.
And when Patrick teased the Savage World
Deadlands.
I was wanting to say wetlands. Would you just be like a Florida man goes in the swamp? I don't know. Deadlands, like when I rolled up the Wichita Witch, it's like, oh, I can do this cool thing, but I really want to do these 3 things to make a really cool character.
Yeah.
Like one thing's cool on its own, but it's not like you're not quite there yet. That's all it is.
Deadlands is one of those that I would probably start at. I forget what it's, novice, and then the one above it is like seasoned or veterans. Yeah, that's one that I would probably start you guys out at seasoned, and that is definitely next on the rotation after Eat the Rag for me. It's still my favorite. We're not talking about Horned Up. We said we're not going to talk about Horned Up, so I'm stopping myself there. But
and you know, after criticizing Pathfinder, I will say Pathfinder lets you do the cool stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty quickly. But there's a weight to it. There's a cost, but it does give it to you.
In terms of like, you have 500 points to go spend. I will say Mithras does a really fucking good job of it. Without being too burdensome. Just like, and I know we had the thing that like let us spend and just apply it to our character sheets. But like I can do basic fucking math on a character sheet in front of me. It's just like how many points. Then I don't have to tally up on fucking playing on Foundry. Like I can do a calculator at home. I like that because it's not. You have your core skills, and then you have the things you specialized in, and that's a really cool approach. I think like you want to focus here, but you also need these basic things, and it's not 30 useless things.
Yeah.
So.
And I will say Mithras, I think it's in the full rulebook and imperative. If you don't deviate too much with your home brewing, they even have a system that's faster, which is like this pyramid. Like
you go like 50, you get 150, 240s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the math works out, and you're spending 200, 300 points, but it's fast. Even though it's
Cyberpunk Red has accelerated. Like take these things. If you want a well-balanced medic, take these things.
Yeah.
You can make adjustments. All of any like good thing should have that. But I like the crunchier life path, assigning each individual point. Usually that's what I want.
Yeah.
But I do agree Pathfinder would be way more work, because you need all of this above me here to get the most out of it. Like if you want some obscure ability over here, you're probably fine, but it may reference like, well, you got to be trained in this, this, and this to be able to use this. And that's why the tools make it that much more enjoyable. Anyways.
Yeah. Pathfinder rewards familiarity in terms of the mechanics.
100%.
Yeah. And I will say, going back a little bit, Degenesis deeply rewards familiarity with the setting. And I will say, when I was making my I really struggled with finding what my character wanted in Degenesis, because I felt like I needed to synthesize so much setting material in order for that want to be true. Degenesis is really good, like that, and I don't mean that as I don't mean that as a slight. Like we all we read through the books, we went through the settings. Like I went deep into Degenesis because the setting's really fascinating, but it rewards. It's not Mork Borg where you just click a randomizer and you're done.
It's a lifestyle game, and that's what
the setting definitely. Yeah,
the setting is a lifestyle setting.
Yeah,
I also like the progression in not just like ranking up in your like experience, but like how you progress in your clan. Like if you're the lock breaker, the judges.
Okay.
Like how you progress either this path, or like all of your characters, and we never got there, which is too bad, like have career paths through your clans. And as you go down those paths, you take like you're specializing in an area, and that was so interesting to me. Oh man, I'm gonna have to pull out my Genesis books.
What this actually, we're not talking, this is basically Inception horniness for Matt to get him to run Degenesis again.
It's true. Yeah.
I wouldn't do the pre-made. I think it's amazing that it's over 10 books and it's a murder mystery that spans the globe.
Oh wow.
I would pick one of the cool ass
countries
places,
or whatever.
France. France is just so fucked in that game, or just park you in and do something completely different and like highlight some of the cool stuff, Like the idea of a slow burn is so appealing to me. I like slow burn mysteries. I like slow burn shows, all of those things. But slow burn RPG doesn't necessarily equate 1-to-1 because you're slow burning 4 people in a room, right?
Yeah.
I would do it different, and I would throw the cool shit in right away.
Yeah.
Okay, so quick sidestep. Gun to your head, lifestyle setting. Matt, what would you choose? Degenesis, Pathfinder? What are you gonna pick?
It's
This
not
is like
Pathfinder because Pathfinder's too generic.
this is a fuck, marry, kill with your lifestyle.
Man.
You can let's do it that way,
like
even though it's
setting?
crass. Yeah, setting, fuck, marry, kill. Degenesis,
I kill
Pathfinder, and
D&D.
No. I'm trying to think of a third one that you actually care about.
Well, then we have to think of 3 for everyone.
Yeah, that's a lot of work. Okay, so let's just put it down to 2.
Do it.
Okay, let's change it up. Let's change it up. Like,
Okay.
your go-to tried and true.
Mm-hmm.
You're curious about, like, if I spent more time here, I'd be all over it, and then you're fuck. Like, I'll step out with you and see what you're about.
Mm.
Does anyone want to go first? Does anyone know their 3? Or we can do like your tried and true. This is your go-to setting, and then go on to our. Oh, I'm curious about that. I'd experiment, and then your side.
So I say we do tried and true because all of us probably have that one already.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, although I will say mine is one of 2. I would either play Alien any day because I love that universe. Now I know that universe has
That's a
had
good pick.
That's right
because you can do so much in that universe.
Right. You don't even need the aliens, and you got
No.
yourself the best space trucking out there.
So I would either do the Alien universe or Deadlands for me because Cowboys.
Nice.
Okay, Matt, what about you?
No, you go first.
Mine would be Days Vault. If I had to pick my go-to setting,
figured.
Nice.
it has to be that. I want it to be other things, but if it had to be, that would be it. Because I could do everything I want with that.
I could play that again in a heartbeat. That was so fun, Art.
We should do that.
All right, fuck you guys. Degenesis
There it is.
I mean, just you guys know, and like
so
listeners don't, but like I was so horned
into
up on
it.
that
Oh my
setting.
God.
It is
so and it's
such
good.
a cool idea.
So good.
The world is so screwed over, and how they changed it and manipulated it is so good. The other one I would do is the one I've always wanted to play in, and so maybe this would change how I play it. And maybe I'll just group it up like a cosmic horror-esque setting of some kind.
Delta Greenish
But
kind of
Delta Greenish, Hellboy,
Yeah.
Old Gods of Appalachia, like any of those things working in concert, I'm gonna be all over. And I know what we said about Call of Cthulhu, but like that's still my dream setting and where I want to be exploring because the mystery of the unknown is so appealing. All right, curious. Like, hey, if I played here for a while, and I know mine, so I can go first, or if you guys Symbaroum. The idea of the corruption of magic and the kind of magic players will get this. Golgari is black and green, and like this whole idea of like rot and vegetation and death all coming together and having this aura presence, and you get corruption. The Symbaroum setting could really be special, and that could just be any dark fantasy setting could be the thing that like becomes my favorite potentially. But I've never played in that. Like Pathfinder is too high fantasy, too happy-go-lucky, but something truly dark, not just throwing Pathfinder to dark thing, and I think it could be Symbaroum. But there's lots of things that I could keep going on, but I'll pick Symbaroum as my what if.
You go, Art.
Trying to think what if. So this is one there. If I gave it more time, it could be my one true love. I would have to say in that case, I feel like I'm sort of in a lane, which is not my typical lane. I might say Harn World, just because there's so much to it. It's low fantasy, which is my jam, can be whatever you want within that vibe. And the material is there to support, high palace intrigue, boots on the ground, clear the mine, being a traveling group of performers going from town to town. Like and probably a lot of games are like this, like Warhammer, Fantasy Role Play. Probably a lot of games can cover this material, but what they don't quite have is just the depth of setting material that if you want to go pour through it, it's there.
So like a lower fantasy version of Galarian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of it. Yeah. And they sort of cheat like a lot of these games do, where like one of the parts of the continent is like a Roman Republic, and you're like, why would they do like that? It's because it's right. Exactly. It's because it lets them cover different narratives. But yeah.
How about you, Patrick?
So this is the one, again, just rehashing it to buy more time, that if we spent more time with it, it could be a lifestyle game kind of thing.
Yeah.
So two come to mind, and it's the Malifaux RPG, Into the Breach. I love that world. Now that comes from the miniatures side of things, and it's just one of the most unique, weird gothic fantasy, steampunk humor, creepy, crazy bullshit going on, like nightmares come to life kind of universe. And it's great. I really should start sending you guys some stuff from Malifaux. It's just such an interesting world, and it's so fleshed out, and they do a really good job marrying the miniatures game and the lore of the world into the miniatures game and into the RPG books. It's a very, very involved story. So that is one potential. And then the other one I will say is Twilight 2000. I think so. I don't have the nostalgia factor that a bunch of our friends have.
I definitely do. Yeah,
sure. And it seems like a really interesting setting. It seems like a really cool it's very different from anything else I've played. So that's on my radar, that I could see myself going way down the rabbit hole with that.
Okay, then first off, love both of those choices.
Mm-hmm.
Less so Twilight 2000 just because I haven't played it, but
sure.
Like the gothic steampunk with all that other stuff, that sounds fascinating.
Oh, it's so good.
So then you're like, next up. And I feel like I'm shafting Pathfinder here because I love that setting.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I have to, like, if I'm being realistic, like perfect situation, I'm doing something like a Ruined World or a Cosmic Horror. But in practice, I'm playing high epic fantasy more often than not. So I better go with that. But it's also really hard not to pick a space thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'll just say Paizo. And then I'll get Starfinder and Pathfinder. I don't know.
Okay.
But I can't, I want to say space, but realistically it's Pathfinder because I want to play high epic fantasy more often than I don't. That's just being realistic. Even.
Right. How about you, Patrick? Do you got this one is sort of the one you would
that's like the next step behind your one tried and true, I guess.
Yeah.
Old reliable.
Yeah.
Like it's there waiting for you with open arms.
I haven't played it, but I'd love to go into Warhammer Fantasy. Love that setting. Mm-hmm. Love that world. Love that's where I come from. So again, on the miniatures side, but
that's solid. I mean, it's just good dark fantasy, right? I mean, we need to do some dark fantasy is what it sounds like. I mean, that's three of us. Art, what about you? What's there waiting for you?
I would pick 2300 AD because I do need some space.
Yeah.
Currently, when we talk about this M-Space game, what it actually is me homebrewing 2300 AD into the Savage Worlds rules using the Expanse essentially as the setting. Or it's the real thing is it's GURPS transhuman space is the bulk of the setting. But what I want is a sort of gritty space trucking, alien free game where you're not like jumping 18 light years to go to the Zarquad quadrant. And, that's the problem. So everybody's like, what's wrong with Traveler? The problem I have with Traveler is that like the towns in Traveler are entire planets or sectors, and it feels too big in scope. Like, why am my characters interacting with the prince of this sector because it's so big? I feel like it gets the scale wrong, so that the adventures I've seen are never just, me, this little mosquito in this massive universe. It's always like, go talk to the leader of this planet and then have him give you a quest. And you're like, okay.
You want to go talk to the local gang boss, not,
right. I want it to be about 10 steps lower.
Yeah.
More Firefly.
I was going to say Firefly.
Right. But a lot of the time when I'm looking at with Traveler material is not that ground level. And maybe I'm just looking in the wrong place. Cowboy Bebop. Except that Cowboy Bebop is what I did with the M-Space game. Like instead of using 2300's bigger scope, I just made it our solar system.
Mm.
And that's the genius of one of the things that's genius about Cowboy Bebop setting is like the solar system's big enough. You don't need it to be, 78 sectors and, which is why my M-Space game is just in our solar system. Because I was like, I started making it bigger and I'm like, you know what? Our solar system is big enough. You just change the type of engine. So it takes you 2 weeks to get somewhere, and then
Uranus is really far from everything. So and yet so close.
So funny story. When I was younger, I thought that the term for butt was Uranus, not anus. And so I never got the joke until I don't know, I was in high school or something like that. I thought I knew Uranus, ha ha ha, it's your butt. And I just thought the word for butt was Uranus.
Uranus, yeah.
Anus. Yeah. Took me a long time to get that joke. Okay, so if I count it right, I guess I would count Deus Vult as dark fantasy, right?
Yeah. In my mind,
more grounded, and then it's got the darker kind of the Catholic guilt you carry. I get it.
Yep.
So that's 3 votes for dark fantasy. Different settings, but we're all kind of
we're all there
saying we want dark, grim dark fantasy.
So you got grim dark fantasy. All 3 of us said a space trucker game.
Well, no, I didn't. Mine didn't make it.
You were close though.
So
well, you said Paizo like a bitch.
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah.
So, but I think the one we were uniform on was grimdark fantasy.
Yeah,
that's true. So Matt,
now it's 3 very different worlds, but my point is we need to do some grimdark fantasy.
Sounds like
then we had 2 for space, 2 for high fantasy,
and then Twilight 2000.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one, and then there's 1 for a bunch of other things.
Yeah. I had thought of a little mini. So part of the thing with the new Twilight 2000 is they go all out on the troops are moving here and here's a world map with, the NATO symbols doing this and that. And so I came up at one point, I was trying to come up with a scenario for Twilight 2000. And I actually went the other direction. I made it very much about it's not about tracking troop movements. It's not about hex crawls. It's just a self-contained little story that takes place in the Twilight 2000 world. And I didn't know if that was going to sell the game system short or if it was just, hey, that's what interests me and I should go with it. But
what's that video game and the board game they made, This War of Mine, right? Isn't that about surviving in a Twilight 2000 scenario? That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that's very much a resource management kind of you need to scavenge and keep people sane. And yeah.
Nice. Well, I enjoyed that detour topic, and it just makes me excited for more stuff on the horizon, but we already have enough brewing as is. And it does make me miss Degenesis because
mission accomplished.
Not just a post-apocalyptic setting, the creativity of that setting is...
Right. And it's kind of got a dark fantasy vibe. Grimdark.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I guess what we should say is if we're kind of done, we should just say we got currently on the horizon. We're not going to talk about what we're horned up for, but we got the Cold War spy game going on and we're going to be doing Eat the Reich soon. So that's going to be our current rotation just to get everybody up to speed. Yeah.
And then Symborum afterwards. That's what it sounds like.
And Deadlands.
But we're not horned up for that.
No.
There's no horn. If we say
still Delta Green,
still
unless
Delta
things
Green.
change. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Pshaw.
And Delta Green has not died in the last 5 days since we last talked.
Or the last 10 minutes.
On Father's Day.
Right. Oh, man.
Wow.
Very nice. Well, I think we...
But Symbaroum.
But I'm saying... I'm just saying.
Symbaroum.
All right, guys, sweep the table. It's time to play Alien.
Nice.
I wonder if Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay would give me the same itch, because there's very specific things in Symbaroum I want to see.
Yes.
And whereas Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay feels a little more generic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I don't know about you. I like the stuff with like Slaanesh and stuff like that is less interesting to me in a role. Like, I don't want to see that in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. You may be different. Like, if I were to play Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, I'd kind of want to be removed from the Warhammer lore.
Oh no.
Oh,
Other than I
interesting.
would want like chaos interfering. I don't know.
So the thing that I always wanted to do, dream game to run, is an all dwarf party or something, like fighting Skaven or something like that. Just
That's fine.
let's do that. Let's go punch rats underground with beards.
So, but there you're kind of like removed from the. I'm talking like big picture Warhammer.
Oh yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That we
Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you need to bring the warp in like every fucking. I don't even know if
No.
that exists in the old stuff.
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we don't. You don't need all the crazy chaos dimension stuff.
I mean, it's cool that that's a looming threat, but like if I'm going to be a rat catcher as like the profession I roll up, I don't know if I need to worry about
that.
Like what
The demon stuff should be like big bad. Like it shouldn't be your everyday like yeah, you should be fighting rats, or oh my god, it's the Empire and we have fucking goblins everywhere again. Like that should be the problem. Like even like lizardmen and tomb kings and all that stuff. That's like scary far away like legend stuff. Like we got orcs outside the fucking castle walls. Like
this drunk guy's kicking my ass because this game is hard.
Exactly. Like beastmen are actually stealing our goats. Like again, small picture problems, not big picture problems.
That's what's always been appealing to me about Warhammer is that you start as like a small picture, like a sewage cleaner.
The smallest picture.
You are a poop smith.
Somebody get the poop knife. Reddit. Is that it? Are we done?
On poop knives. Do we want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think we can end on poop knives. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another wonderful segment. Art, Patrick, thank you for weeding through the SNL content at the beginning to really the truly glorious content such as poop knives.
Poop knives.
That's going to do it for us. As always, the best place to find us is over on our Discord. There's a link down in the show notes. We're on all the social media. If you listen to this, we're on YouTube. If you're watching, don't forget we have podcasts. You can grab that in whatever feed you prefer and shove that in your ears. But yeah, come join the Discord. All right. Good night, everyone.
Take care.
Adios.